Welcome everyone to the last day of the National Conference on Ending Homelessness and Capitol Hill Day. Please welcome to the stage the Alliance's Chief Policy Officer, Steve Berg.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone, and welcome to the closing plenary of this conference. It has been so great to be together with all you people this week, learning a lot, getting a lot done. Thank you for being here, for the time you've taken to come to Washington, D.C., and we're looking forward to working together with you throughout the year. This session today is about policies and overall approaches that will bring about more progress, including how important it is to center racial justice. Speakers are some amazing people who I'm happy to know, and I'm sure if you don't know them already, you'll be happy to know them after this session is over. First, though, I'm happy to say and happy to celebrate that at this conference this afternoon, we are returning to live, in-person Capitol Hill Day. Yeah. It couldn't come at a more important time. With conflicts and controversy in Congress, the need for robust responses from the federal government. So thank you to the Alliance staff who have put Hill Day together, particularly Jerry Jones and Samantha Wood and John Threlkeld. Yeah, please, give them a hand. I hope you've met them already. If you haven't, they'll be hanging around the advocacy hub and on the buses and running around today to make sure everybody gets where they need to go. Our message to the Hill today and throughout the year is pretty simple, and I can summarize it in 3 points. The first point is that ending homelessness is good for everyone in our communities. It's good for everyone in our communities. Yeah. The second point is we know what the solutions are. There are solutions to this problem, and we, the people in this room, know what they are. And third, we need to take funding to scale and policy to the next level, and we need the help of the U.S. Congress to do that. So thank you, do it. Okay. Let me spend a couple of minutes on the details of what we're encouraging you to talk to Congress about, not only today at Hill Day, but throughout the year. The first is funding through the appropriations process for homeless assistance from HUD. People know this. They know that the Continuum of Care program and the ESG program pay for building and maintaining systems in your communities that will help engage people who are homeless, keep them safe, and move them quickly into housing. We need $200 million more than we had this year. And it's in the year when money is tight. So we're going to have to be very persuasive and very persistent in asking what we want. And the timing for this is excellent. The timing for Hill Day is excellent because the Senate Appropriations Committee, which is our key place that needs to make the decisions we need. They're meeting tomorrow to make the decisions about what's in their bill. So the timing couldn't be better. Today is the day to be there. A specific thing we're advocating for is having some of this money being used for better funding for frontline staff workers and people who work in this field. Yeah. We have heard and we have passed on to them the difficulties people are having keeping people in their jobs, finding new people to take these jobs. There's a built-in rent increase every year in the Continuum of Care formula, and we need a built-in cost of living increase so that people don't end up not being able to afford housing themselves if they're working for homeless programs. Another detail that we're asking for is a 2-year notice of funding opportunity. Yeah, that's a particularly this time of year, I know that's a popular thing with this group. so that you only need to go through that NOFO process every 2 years rather than once every year. And we've gotten some good feedback on this, so we're hopeful that we can make this happen. And finally, we need better funding for the mainstream housing programs. So homeless systems have made incredible progress, a lot of it because of the work people in this room have done over the last 15 years at moving people quickly out of homelessness. The new data from HUD and from groups like the Urban Institute with their new Women's Needs Assessment report shows that that continues to be true. The homeless systems are doing well at getting people out of homelessness and into housing. But they also show, this new data also shows, that we need to have similar systems of housing stability that will keep people from ever becoming homeless in the first place. And of course, the Housing Choice Voucher Program is the most important and unfortunately the most underfunded component of such a system. So that's another thing we need people to talk about on Capitol Hill. There are many other issues including specific proposals about supportive services, about health care, and coordinating health care. You can learn all of that at the Advocacy Hub, and we've got printed materials for people on that. The other ask at our Hill meeting, besides support for specific funding and policy proposals, is for your members of Congress to become partners with you in reducing and ending homelessness in your communities. Your members of Congress can help work out problems with federal agencies. They can convince the local leaders to do the right things. They can persuade other members of Congress. They want to be part of something. Any member of Congress, any elected official wants to be part of something good that's happening in their community. You can give them the opportunity, the real opportunity to be part of the good work that you're doing in the community. And that's a year-round thing that they can help you with. Now, earlier in this conference, Ann and others talked about making the case, the way that decades of research and practice have proven to be effective. And we hope you'll be able to use the principles of strategic case-making that we've been talking about as part of Capitol Hill Day. Connect to people's aspirations. We want to help build communities where everyone has what they need. Naming the power of the moment. There's more attention than ever to homelessness. There's greater understanding of its roots in systemic racism and injustice, and greater know-how about what it will take to solve. Talking about what people can lose by sitting on the sidelines. There are way too many bad ideas out there, and we need to make sure that the good ideas are what decision makers understand. Navigating the dominant narratives. You know, polls still show that a solid majority of Americans think that homelessness exists because housing is too expensive. Well, duh. But that's good. That's good that most people understand that simple thing. But yet, what's getting airplay right now is mental illness and drugs. Well, guess what? We know that addressing those things is part of the solution. And the Housing First approach with solutions to mental health issues and substance abuse disorders, that's part of the solution that we have been talking about. Emphasizing solutions, not problems. Fortunately, we have the solutions. We understand the solutions. We can remake the systems that are causing this problem and turn them into systems that bring about solutions, with our communities coming together to ensure that nobody needs to worry about where they're going to sleep at night. That's the message we're bringing to Congress, and thank you for bringing it. We know the solutions. We know what we need to turn those solutions into reality. Our elected representatives and senators need to be part of that. We need to give them the opportunity on Hill Day and throughout the day and throughout the year to be part of that solutions. That starts today. We'll have hundreds of people up there letting them know. Wearing those buttons, people will be talking for the next several weeks about, oh, all the homeless advocates were up there. That's going to help us. That starts today. We'll have hundreds of people up there. We're letting them know we are back, we are here, we are advocating for justice, and we are making justice happen in our communities. But thank you all for participating. Now let me introduce Jeff Olivet. 20 years ago, the Alliance helped bring back from the dead the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. And it's a great success that we did that. The council brings together leaders from all the federal agencies that play some part in developing solutions. It helps states and localities do the same thing. We're happy that the Biden administration chose as executive director of USICH one of the most knowledgeable and dedicated people in the country on this issue, Jeff Olivet. Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. It is so good to be with you all. It's been great to be here with you the last 3 days. There's so much to be hopeful about, and all of the incredible energy that you all have brought will power us all as we go forward from here. Since I joined USICH a year and a half ago, I've had the opportunity and the honor of working with many of you, and I am so deeply grateful for our partnership. In traveling around the country with our amazing team at USICH, many of whom are here today, over here and around the room, connect with them if you haven't, we've seen so much that strengthens our belief that despite the challenges ahead, we can and we will end homelessness in the United States. We have learned from young people of color at CSU Youth Services who are using their experiences of homelessness to shape Oklahoma City's homelessness response. And we've walked with the staff of the Timon Booten Navigation Center as they work to end homelessness for trans people in San Francisco. We've seen in Aurora, Colorado, how Providence in the Heights combines supportive housing with trauma-informed design. We've sat with the leaders of the Pu'uhonoa Owaianai village on the island of Oahu as they are transforming a long-term encampment into a community of dignified homes and deep human connection. And we've met with the staff and residents of Women in Need as they courageously work to address not only the crisis of homelessness for longtime New Yorkers, but also the recent arrival of asylum seekers and others who, like so many before them, fled oppression back home only to end up in the streets and shelters of their new country. In this line of work, success is often invisible to the public eye, and heartbreak is an everyday experience. Many of the challenges that we face are growing, rents are rising, and evictions are increasing. Millions are struggling, and many are falling into homelessness for the very first time. The sights of tents and people sleeping on sidewalks has become increasingly common, and so has deadly violence against people without homes. Let us take a moment now to remember Jordan Neely, who was choked to death in New York City in May, Scott Bryan, who was beaten to death 4 weeks ago in Kalispell, Montana, and so many others who have lost their lives while suffering the trauma of homelessness. Yet, it is not enough just to remember the dead and hold them in our hearts. We here in this room and our partners back home are also fighting like hell for the living. We must continue to combat laws that criminalize homelessness, and we must continue to fight dangerous, scapegoating narratives that dehumanize and blame. History teaches us that hateful words repeated over and over eventually sink in and increase the chances of people being sprayed with a hose while sitting on the sidewalk or killed while begging for help on a subway car. The real solutions to this crisis will take time and investment. They will take patience and persistence. We must continue our work to scale up the housing and services that we know are effective. We must continue to invest in mental health care, substance use treatment, and other wraparound supports, and we must continue to believe that recovery is possible. We must also continue to push back on the rhetoric that housing first doesn't work. Such arguments are politically cynical, intellectually lazy, and harmful to programs that help people exit homelessness. The work that you do every day helps more than 2,500 people move off the streets, out of shelters, and into homes every single day in this country. Every day, you prove wrong the cynics who would say that what you're doing doesn't work or that it is impossible to end homelessness. So where do we go from here? We can't make progress until we interrupt the cycle where as soon as one family is housed, another loses their home. We have to do more to prevent homelessness before it happens. Now, I have come to believe that no one else is going to step up to prevent homelessness. It's got to be us, and it's got to be now. No one else is going to carry the prevention torch. This means accelerating development of new affordable housing. It means collaborating with and holding accountable other systems like child welfare, jails and prisons, hospitals, and behavioral health so that they never discharge anyone into homelessness. Now, prevention will also require new investments and new partnership. We need public will and private money, and we need our best creative thinking like that of Destination Home in Santa Clara, California, which has shown empirically that homelessness prevention can work. And sustainable prevention will also require us as a nation to uproot the structural racism that drives high rates of homelessness for people of color. The Biden-Harris administration is with you in this work. Last year alone, USICH, HUD, and the VA partnered with more than 100 communities across the country to help 140,000 people escape homelessness. And as my friend Tiffany DuVernay-Smith says, this is not data, these are people. Our federal strategic plan, All In, lays out a roadmap for accelerating progress. As part of the plan, HUD is investing $500 million in first-of-its-kind funding for 62 communities to address unsheltered and rural homelessness. And earlier this summer, the White House and USICH launched the All Inside initiative to help unsheltered people in targeted communities move off the streets and into homes. We make mistakes. We can and will do more to listen to people with lived experience, especially those living in encampments here in DC and across the country as they tell us what they need. We will do more to support communities to address encampments humanely and effectively. This means getting people into housing, not just sweeping away their tents and hoping homelessness disappears. While there will be missteps, I promise we will learn fast and we will correct quickly. And we will continue to expand our work. For the first time ever, HUD is investing more than $3 billion in continuum of care grants, and President Biden has proposed a guaranteed housing voucher for every extremely low-income veteran and every young person aging out of foster care. Now, when you go to the Hill today, and I'm glad many of you are going to the Hill today, give them hell, and tell your congressional delegation to support the president's budget. Help them understand that homelessness is our collective responsibility, not a political football. Help them understand that housing, not handcuffs, solves homelessness. And finally, help them understand that addressing homelessness is not only a policy choice, but a moral one. Now, hope too is a choice, every day for each one of us. I recently met an older woman, Grace, who had lost her home after her partner died and she could no longer afford the rent. She was living in a tent under a bridge with her dog, and with few options, this was where she felt safest. She was on the verge of losing hope, but through her own strength and the work of an amazing outreach team, she connected with housing and support and now has a place of her own. That's what gives me hope. Now, I know you could be anywhere in the world today, but you chose to be here. 3 years ago, our spirit dimmed as the pandemic defined an era of loss and isolation. Yet we have risen up. We have come back together, and our stubborn dedication is here for all to see. So, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. Thank you for everything you do. We're in this together. Over the next few minutes, you're going to hear from some remarkable speakers. I'm honored to be in this work with such powerful women and visionary leaders like Amanda, Valicia, and Jennifer. And now the amazing Sharon McDonald from the National Alliance.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks to everybody here at the conference. I have been coming to Alliance conferences for over 20 years. This has been a particularly joyful one, so I thank you for that. And I also want to say I always find it inspiring, and I always learn so much, not just from those wonderful people on the panel, but just as often I'm just inspired and full of hope and excitement about what people tell me they're doing when they stop me in the hallways of conferences. So I really do thank you. I have the great honor of highlighting some of the stories of folks who are back home. As we're learning from one another, the folks back home who are doing their best to keep everything going. They're rehousing folks, they're entering people into shelter, they're providing outreach, they're doing their very, very best. They're working long hours in hard conditions to keep people safe. So, with that, I'm going to tell a few stories from the wall. And if you haven't been up there, you should take a look. Look at the whole thing. I've randomly picked 5 ones, but there's many, many others. Cecilia in San Francisco. With deeply supportive and trauma-informed care, she houses, stabilizes, and advocates for survivors of domestic violence. Tanya Blackhorse with the Native American Rehabilitation Association. She is part of the BIPOC outreach team that is the main point of entry for Coordinated Entry System. She advocates for the Native community fiercely, and she is a strong partner. She ensures we work to end barriers and house people faster. Yeah. Woo to them all. Caroline in Buffalo not only lends her hand to all, but also her heart. Her passion shines in all her work, and her willingness to go above and beyond exceeds anything we can expect in our job. Tracy in the Youth Connection in Washington has lived experience, which she brings and creates authentic engagement with the youth that she works with as a case manager. She is amazing. Tracy in Wilmington, Delaware, connects people who are unsheltered to shelter and services every day. And that's actually the whole thing, isn't it? Every day, showing up, doing their best, showing up, doing our best. And lastly, and there's many, many others that are inspiring, somebody cheated and nominated a whole darn team working in Skid Row. This team, with the people concerned, is a group of rock stars that have the biggest hearts. They always show up, they fight back, they speak up, they meet the people where they're at. You are doing amazing, sweetie, to the whole team. There's a lot of love on that wall. I hope when you go back home and you talk to the folks in your team, you tell them that they're appreciated. We send their support. We wish that they were here, but we're glad they're taking care of folks, and we value everything that they do. I am now proud to introduce Alliance, a great friend to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and to all of you, and a movement leader, Amanda Nderi, the CEO of Funders Together to End Homelessness. Amanda?
Good morning. Oh, come on, y'all. I do this every year. Good morning. I need to hear you. I am really honored to be here. But I will take a moment to share some vulnerability with you in my remarks today. A few weeks ago, I started to text my colleague, partner, and friend, Ann Oliva, and I wanted to say two things. One, what should I wear to the Beyonce concert? I'm still looking for ideas, folks, so hit me up. Two, I think you should find someone else for the plenary because I have nothing new to say. And as my team at Funders Together suggested, you should just tell Ann and the Alliance staff to press play on the video of last year's speech where you insisted ending homelessness wasn't enough because folks need agency and power over where and how they live in the form of housing justice. Tell them again, Amanda, we need to know the difference between racial equity and racial justice to achieve true liberation. Remind them, Amanda, they need to give up and share power with people with lived expertise, especially Black and Indigenous and people of color who've been marginalized by the systems of oppression. Point to the part of your speech last year where you said our liberation is connected and joy is the resistance to the oppression we face. Warn them again, Amanda, about the great regression where folks, because of the rush to get back to normal, slide back on making meaningful and measurable progress to put action behind their declaration in 2020 that Black Lives Matter. Tell them, Amanda, about the times that folks complain to you that the work of racial equity is hard because of the rising pushback of those who rally against CRT, aka teaching real history, and the continued narrative that wokeism is the devil, and that you, Amanda, have to remind folks, mostly who are white and gatekeepers to resources and power, you know what is actually hard? Being Black in America, being unhoused and being Black and Indigenous in America, knowing we are on stolen land and still feeling the pain of chattel slavery that has resulted in racialized capitalism. So all of that, yes, I am here to remind you of because not a damn thing has changed. But the reality is I didn't want to stand in front of you today, not because I didn't have anything new to say, but because for all of this year, I have felt disconnected from our work. Frustrated that we didn't listen to Black queer folks who warned it was going to be this bad when it came to criminalization and the dehumanization of unhoused folks. I felt like I wasn't needed in spaces I once led. I felt I was on the outside looking in and just going through the motions because the work was shifting and I didn't see a place in it. Is anyone who's actually doing the work of equity and justice feeling this way, or are we all playing and pretending? Because that's how it feels feels when you are doing the work. It is hard every day. You don't see yourself in it because maybe you're not supposed to be in it. I have been feeling disconnected and disillusioned because in February we had to hold our friends and partners in the federal government accountable. And as Congresswoman Cori Bush reminded us yesterday, we put the only thing we have on the line, our bodies, to bring attention to the injustice of raids on encampments not too far away from where we are today. And we are still working through the harm and continued harm of policing folks instead of housing folks from the very administration that claims housing first and racial equity is a priority, with no meaningful accountability from them on the damage that has been done and the trust that has been broken. And months later, we witnessed the death of another young Black body, Jordan Neely, crying out for help because instead of housing folks, we enable a narrative that criminalizes and polices Black bodies for existing in a world that daily oppresses them. I feel disconnected at times. I'm feeling disconnected because power is shifting, because I'm no longer needed, because the folks that are supposed to be leading us are, and that is a good thing. That is the thing we've been working towards. It's messy, folks. It's hard. It's not linear. There's no toolkit. There are no talking points. And there's no traditional therapy or coaching that invites us to process the pain of deconstructing and decolonizing all that we have known to be true in this nonprofit industrial complex where we are forced to maintain a crisis system instead of addressing the root cause of the crisis. I have been feeling tired and disconnected because I am part of the oppressive system of philanthropy that, as Erica Totten reminds us, funds the fight but not the recovery. And if I am tired, I can't imagine how, as frontline staff, leaders in community, those advocating every day, those of you who will go to the Hill today, I can't imagine how tired you must be feeling as we have not created the space for rest, recovery, and restoration that allows us to reimagine a system of liberation rather than oppression. And when I shared how I was feeling with my friend and unofficial coach in liberation, Sarah Hunter, she gave me this look, as she does, when she's about to drop some wisdom on you, and was like, yeah, the work of giving up and sharing power is hard and painful, Amanda. The work to abolish oppressive systems is hard and painful. That ish is hard, Amanda, and you're feeling what you told others they would feel, and that is okay. And at that moment, I realized I do have something to say to all of you. I actually do have some hope in the despair I've been feeling and a call to action for those of us in power. I have spent most of my free time this week hanging with some dope-ass young folks from LA who are give it up, yep, they're back there, I see you. They are part of the Housing Justice Collective, and do they bring me joy, but they also challenge all of our thinking of what is possible in the work of housing justice and made me realize the system of oppression, the people who hoard power, are pushing back from the outside and the inside of our movement because we are making progress, folks. Because folks are demanding more than a seat at a table they didn't even frickin' create. They want power and agency to create their own tables, circles, loving communities that center joy and justice. And when activists declare, I believe we will win, and the powers at B see small victories, their only response is to push back. And so, like many fights for basic rights, it will get worse before it gets better. but it will get better and we will win. And our victory will not be an incremental policy change, but the radical reimagining of a country that finally delivers on the promise of justice and liberation for all, where all means all. But that will only happen if the folks who hold power, who are gatekeepers, feel like I feel, and then do something about it by just moving out of the damn way. So this will be my last time that I speak to you at a plenary stage at the Alliance Conference. I'm not leaving Funders Together. But as much as it gives me joy addressing you all every year, in doing that, I am not practicing what I preach. And by way of love and disruption, my commitment the rest of my time in this movement is to actively give up the mic in effort to model what it looks like to give up and share power. And let me be specific and clear. If I, as a Black woman, do that, my white colleagues and friends, the folks in power without lived experience, need to look deeply within as to why they have not done that yet. I want to thank you for letting me be vulnerable with you today, and all that you do in the work for ending homelessness and housing justice. May we walk away reminded of Assata Shakur's words that keep me going daily. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's not over yet. We still got a lot of excitement to go, folks. I feel so deeply honored to introduce my sister in this work, a person that I've only gotten to know over the years, as she one day stopped me in the hallway and said, we need to connect and learn from each other and be friends. And we have done that in some deep ways. I could read her bio, but what you all need to know is this sister out in LA is the truth. She is warm, she is kind, she is a leader, she is fierce. I look up to her, I learn from her. And I am so glad that LASA has a CEO like Dr. Valisha Adams-Kellum. Y'all, if we end homelessness in LA, we can end it in the country, and her leadership will help us get there. Please welcome her to the stage right now.
She always brings it, doesn't she? I've been out there for so many years looking up here at my sister Amanda and wanting to be like her, wanting to share a message of hope and inspiration. And she told some folks to get out the way, didn't she? As you heard, I lead one of the largest continuums of care in the United States. I'm in this role because a small group of leaders in Los Angeles decided to share power with me. LASA started in 1993, but for the first time this year in its history, a woman of color from the provider community is at the helm. Hey, It took us a while to get here, but we here now, y'all. But it's also at a time that we're seeing 75,000 people unhoused on the streets of Los Angeles. In hiring someone like me for this seat, they really had to find someone who believed in a challenge and a whole lot of therapy. And I do. And when they hired me, they brought my voice, my experience, my hurt, my pain, and my trauma to the decision-making table. You see, I grew up in a single-parent home where there was intense awareness of our vulnerability. My dad stayed involved after the divorce, and we were very close. But my mom and I still lived in a state of fear. A state of fear like many of the clients we serve face every day. And then my brother got in trouble, my big brother. First at school, and eventually with the police. So after he was arrested, we started spending our weekends visiting him in prison. My own marriage started to disintegrate during my first year at St. Joseph Center as the new ED. My husband had a severe addiction to alcohol, and eventually my daughters and I were forced to move to a motel to stay safe. Yes, I was a new ED and homeless, and no one knew. The rough patches along the big and windy road of pain and suffering, along with the blessings and miracles, have grounded me. They've made me strong and sensitive to the needs of others. As my fellow execs of color know, we are in high-level positions, often in spaces where we're alone. When we go to meetings, we often don't see anyone who looks like us. And too often, we don't have bosses or board members who look like us. So when Mayor Bass asked me to join her transition team and create her homeless plan before starting at LAHSA, I was incredibly honored. And I had such pride to see a Black woman, someone who looked like me, be in such an important role. And I see that at times when I walk through the halls and when I'm at work and the Black people, the Black staff see me, and I can see everything that they're feeling. Yes, you can clap, because I know what you feel. My job at LAHSA is to step into this unprecedented moment and align our resources and our staff of 700 with a plan of action that allows us to lead and respond to this humanitarian crisis with strategic accuracy, clarity, and best practice. We are innovating in LA like never before. Where are my LA peeps? We are bringing valuable resources to people experiencing homelessness that they want and need, which is bringing them out of encampments without arrest and into interim housing and permanent housing at a rate like never before. And yes, we are moving people through from interim housing into permanency faster, and also scaling up our master leasing model to grow the availability of permanent housing. Thank you, Chris Freed, for that. Yes. Though I'm grateful and honored to be able to innovate and make a difference like this, people of color don't take on new high-level positions like this lightly. In fact, they recruited me for about 2 years before I accepted. You see, people of color know that when we take a high-level, high-profile job with increased power, responsibility, and authority, we are at great risk of things not working out because we're often targeted and not given an opportunity to succeed. Folks don't move out of the way often. When we lose the job, are pushed out, or leave voluntarily due to a lack of support, the loss of income could cause us to lose everything. That is certainly the calculation that my husband and my daughters, one who's right here in front, that's the calculation we made at home before I said yes. According to Variety in the last month, 6 Black women executives in prominent leadership roles have abruptly left their positions in the movie industry. Many oversaw diversity, equity, inclusion in departments, putting them on the front lines of larger efforts to change corporate cultures and hiring practices. We, unfortunately, have seen similar executive exits in the homeless and housing sector, and it's extremely sad, and we're all responsible for that. People of color in exec roles are under too much pressure. We know that keeping our good jobs is conditioned on our excellence and near perfection in how we execute. Yes. In other words, there is zero room for error. Zero. We are oppressed. We are forced to listen to people whether they're fully informed or not, and to often do what they say over what we know is right. We have to yield. We have to bite our tongues and to be everything to everyone. And oh yes, it includes taking care of our families, making sure we're there for them. Because if it doesn't work out, we need to have a family and a community to return to. And the truth is, what I'm saying is not always true for my white counterparts. And so you might ask, what would help executives feel more supported? Well, we want and need everything our white counterparts receive. Everything. We need the assumption of being qualified and not having to prove ourselves all the time. For you to have confidence in our decision making and not undermine our decisions. Come to us directly and not go around us or to our staff, that's also called around us, when you disagree. Include us in key decisions and meetings about our areas of work. Nothing about us without us. Please don't share power with us without sharing resources, support, and space for learning, growing, mistakes, hope, and grace. Hope and grace. That leads me back to where I started, doesn't it? Why did I say yes? Why did I leave my good job and the people that love me so much? Thank you, St. Joseph Center. I know you out there. And take on LASA. I said yes because I'm called to this work, like many of you. It really starts with why we all do this work. We do this work because we get to be warriors for the poor and the homeless. We get to do what's right, and we must do what's right. Whether we're in the field or in the office, we save lives. Yes. When we share power by bringing food to someone in a tent, handing out groceries in the pantry, hiring and promoting someone with lived experience, or promoting a person of color to a position of power, we are changing and saving lives families, and whole communities. That's meaningful and important and exactly why we're here. In saying yes to my new position, I take the passion and the energy of the provider community to the halls of power. They didn't know what they were doing when they gave me this job. I said yes because I had to say yes. And I hope you say yes too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now, I'd like to introduce you to Jennifer Ho. She's the 7th Commissioner of Minnesota Housing. She has spent much of her career working to end homelessness and house those that make the least. Previously, Commissioner Ho led Hearth Connection, was Deputy Director of the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and served as Senior Advisor at HUD. She currently serves on the board of the National Council of State Housing Agencies and the Melville Charitable Trust. Jennifer Ho is also a longtime friend and partner of the Alliance. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer to the stage.
Damn. Thanks, Felicia. Thanks for taking on LA. I'm just here from Minnesota. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking on the federal government. I'm just in Minnesota. Amanda, thanks for taking on what matters. Everything. What they said. Thank you. I'm the pivot. I'm excited to be back at this conference. It is great to be here with you all. I think I came, Sharon, to my first conference in maybe 2003. And this is family. This is a tremendous community. And you have helped shape me in profound ways. I want to give a special shout out, if there's anyone here from the board, for having the good sense to ask Ann Oliva to lead the Alliance. When Ann said she was retiring, I knew through and through that Ann would be a great choice to lead, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today to see the Alliance at this point under your leadership. Ann asked me to talk today about the historic investments Minnesota is poised to make in housing stability. You might have seen E.J. Dion's column in the Washington Post called The Minnesota Miracle, or you may have seen President Obama's tweet after the spring session ended. He said, if you need a reminder that elections have consequences, check out what's happening in Minnesota. So I'm here to tell you the story of the last 18 months and how Minnesota landed a once-in-a-generation commitment to housing. I'm also here to tell you how we have prepared for this moment for decades. And finally, I'm going to tell you why you have to be ready for your moment too. So let me take you back to a cold winter, January 2022. We were on the eve of that year's legislative session, and Minnesota woke up to some shockingly wonderful news. The state had a $9.25 billion surplus. $9 billion. The governor's office told us, dream big. Put together a game-changing budget. My colleague Kathy Tembrook, who leads the Minnesota Interagency Council on Homelessness, gathered her team, I gathered mine, and we scrambled to put together a $1 billion housing stability package. 10 days later, we sat in front of the governor and lieutenant governor, and they embraced it as their own. They held a press conference in a community room of a new permanent supportive housing building. Kathy and I stood proudly alongside the governor and lieutenant governor. A resident shared a story about what it meant to him to live there, and the press covered the whole story. We went sailing into the 2022 legislative session with high hopes. We took it to our hill. This was our year. My mantra in 2019, go big so everyone can go home, was actually going to come to pass. But somewhere along the way, the engine stalled. While the House fully supported our recommendation of $1 billion for housing, the Senate was stuck at $50 million. When the negotiations came down to the wire, they couldn't come to an agreement. The session ended with no bill at all. Nothing. $0 billion for housing. Our hopes were dashed on the rocks of deadlock. We were stunned by the sudden adjournment in which nothing came to pass. But we licked our wounds and we resumed our work. The Minnesota Interagency Council on Homelessness continued to co-create its justice plan with a team of people with lived experience of homelessness. These paid consultants developed definitions of housing justice, racial justice, and health justice. Their definitions became the backbone of the Council's justice plan. The justice plan began to coalesce around their words. So fast forward to the elections last November. The governor and lieutenant governor won their re-election. The Democrats held on to the House, and the Senate flipped. One seat changed, and suddenly the landscape looked a whole lot different. So in the early days of 2023, the governor got an inkling of the state's budget projections. We were looking at a $17 billion surplus, and we're just Minnesota. The order came through with great urgency to all the agencies. Put together a go big budget. It is time to go big. So we picked up our 2022 budget and added from there. We hashed out the details along our other state agency colleagues from the Health Department, the Human Services Department, Education Department, Corrections Department. And we crafted an interagency budget for over $1.7 billion, $1 billion of which would flow through my agency, Minnesota Housing. And then we took it to the Hill. The legislators put their heads down. They knew this was their one shot. Some days, as many as 3 groundbreaking bills were passed in a day. Incredibly, there was not a peep about a special session. They passed a comprehensive One Minnesota budget on time. And by the time the dust settled, they had approved a housing stability package of $2.6 billion. Billion, to which I say, boom! Sure, we'd been in the room where $110 million happened, but not $2 billion. Minnesota Housing alone received 10 times more than we typically receive. Now, I get that these numbers may not sound like a lot if you're from a bigger state than Minnesota, so let me put that in perspective. Who's here from New York? All right, New York, you're 4 times larger than Minnesota. That would feel like you just received $10 billion for housing and homelessness. Boom! Anyone from California? All right, California, you're 8 times larger than Minnesota. That means that you got $20 billion of boom. You all know how big boom is in your state. So how did this happen? It didn't come out of nowhere. In many ways, the stars aligned. Circumstances entirely out of our control converged. The state had a budget surplus of maximum proportions. The governor was reelected. The governor is flanked by a housing-first lieutenant governor, the second highest-ranking Native American woman in the country, who grew up in Section 8 housing and is a renter to this day. Together, they are formidable advocates for safe, stable housing people can afford in preventing and ending homelessness. The House remained in the hands of the Democrats, but in a move no one saw coming, the balance of power in the Senate again shifted by 1 vote. And just like that, we had alignment in vision and intention. After a decade of divided government, we had a trifecta. And the right leaders, people who care deeply and passionately about housing Minnesotans who make the least, took the helm of the Housing and Homelessness Committees at the Capitol. In the 2023 session, the legislators came in blazing. They codified abortion rights, they gave voting rights to people who had served time, they legalized marijuana, and they lined up for housing. Representative Howard and Senator Port led the housing committees. They gave their unwavering support. Melissa Hortman, who's the Speaker of the Minnesota House, said, "I've been working my entire life to have an opportunity like this. It was a golden moment this year to have the trifecta and to have a surplus, to have bills and authors that are ready to go." And those are the key words, aren't they? When that golden moment came, the real experts and the advocates and the partners and the tribal nations, the state and the legislators were ready to go, and we took it to the Hill. On May 22, less than 2 months ago, when the votes were cast and the outcome was clear, $1.3 billion for the housing agency and a total of $2.6 billion overall for housing stability, our reaction was, boom! And we weren't too deep into June when the euphoria lifted and the mountain of work ahead of us was revealed, and our reaction was, whoa. I mean, much of that $1 billion is one-time money, available as of July 1, to be spent in programs that don't even exist yet. The weight and responsibility of implementation is kicking in. It's the difference between a presidential election and the swearing in. Dawned on me and all of us, this is what going big looks like. I've expanded my leadership team, and we're adding lots of staff. We're adding new teams to implement wholly new programs. Money doesn't change the fact that we're government. We still have program guides and RFPs to write and contracts to execute. It may be the end of the legislative phase, but it is only the beginning of the work. And like any multi-billion-dollar project, our agency's work will receive more scrutiny than we've ever received before. Without a doubt, this is going to be the greatest challenge of my career. The stars aligning for a major state investment is one thing. Being ready to seize the moment when the stars align is another thing entirely. But I'm pleased that that's why I get to stand with you here today. It's not enough to receive a windfall. Hope is not a plan, as my governor likes to say. This has been a movement in the state of Minnesota for decades. Being prepared for this moment has required collective historical wisdom, community buy-in, steadfast support. It took a long arc to get here. We needed to have people show up across all the state agencies. It took legislative groundwork, and it took champions. It took the voices of people who know what it is like to see their belongings strewn across the front lawn, who know what it feels like to wake up in the back of their car, to navigate the streets and shelters. It took those voices. It took years of listening to really listen to understand what really works. We had to do the work before we could possibly know what to ask for when the call came to develop a budget beyond our wildest dreams. From all our years of work with incredible partners, we know what we really needed to make the biggest difference. We call them the 4 A's. We need the right amount of housing and shelter that is affordable to people who make the least, that is accessible to people with disabilities, with addiction, and that provides adequate services and supports for those who need them. We have to slow down the eviction process. We need to add more eviction prevention dollars to the system. We need to share power with people with lived experience. We need to co-create solutions with the people who have lived it. We need to decriminalize drug trafficking. This is huge. That part. Minnesota is now one of 2 states that have laws that are not so punitive if you're found to have a pipe with residue. We need to practice real harm reduction. On a lot of levels. Working on a shared budget across 9 separate state agencies mattered greatly. It mattered to be among the governor's top 5 priorities. It mattered. And the pandemic taught us a lot about shelter. It used to be that when we received relatively paltry sums of money at the state, we'd invest it all in housing. Now we are also investing in shelter. The old school way meant you got in at 5 p.m. and you were out by 7 a.m. You got a night's sleep, maybe, and a meal. The pandemic showed us that shelter must be a safe space to store your belongings, to bring in your partners and your pets, and it's a place to manage safely your drug use if you do. It showed that accommodation that does everything it can to result in housing is the right way to do shelter. We already had a framework for the state's needs and the solutions that work. Frankly, I think we can admit we've had lots of solid frameworks. We were already attuned to community voices through our paid consultants with lived experience who shared their deeply personal stories of the experience of a housing system that doesn't really exist. We had alignment with the other state agencies because we'd done a dry run the year before and we'd been talking to them for years at our interagency table. The silos came down years ago. Of course, the true measure of success will be how the dollars are spent, how centering people's voices will change how we do the work. We don't want to miss this unprecedented opportunity with unprecedented resources and unprecedented alignment with the community, but we will have to do the right things. Today, mostly, our consultants believe us when we say that we hear them because they can tell that we're listening by what we say back and what we do. When government succeeds in doing something from the bottom up, it's an earthquake. So here's my message to you. Be ready. You never know when the stars will align. When you can practically feel the harmonic convergence, it so easily could not have happened if the governor hadn't won his reelection, if the Senate hadn't flipped, if we hadn't had an unimaginable surplus, if the Democrats had played it safe. But sometimes the stars really do align. And when that window opens, it stays open for the briefest of moments. The scariest thing is knowing what to ask for. You have to be confident in your data. You need an actionable plan, and you need to believe that it is possible. Remember, hope is not a plan. Our plan is for housing, racial, and health justice for people facing homelessness. And once you invite people who have been homeless to articulate what justice requires, you have no choice but to go big. To do otherwise would be to perpetuate injustice. That's why we're going big. So let's do this. Let's take this message to the Hill. Boom! Thank you.
Can you come back out here? That's all right. I'm going to put them back on the floor. I'm going to leave them where Jennifer had them. Good afternoon, everyone. So what did you learn from that plenary just now? We learned boom. Anyone else? Stay ready. Seize your moment. Be ready. Seize your moment. Elections matter. Representation matters. Sharing and shifting power matter. Nothing about us without it. Nothing about us without us. So I wasn't actually even sure that I was going to be able to speak up here today because I was screaming for hours last night at live band karaoke. And I want to thank everybody who participated. There is some amazing, amazing talent in this room. It was so fun, and we're going to keep bringing on the fun as we go forward because people really enjoyed it. So let me ask, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling? I'm feeling a little tired. Folks feeling a little tired? I'm feeling maybe not as fresh as I was on Monday. But I'm also feeling pretty excited and revved up for Capitol Hill Day. How are you feeling? Excited? Revved up for Capitol Hill Day? Come on, people. So I know I am between you and lunch, and I'm just going to take a couple minutes because this is the time in the conference where we start to wind things down, do a little bit of reflecting about the last couple of days, and say some thank yous to all the folks who made this a great week. I will start again. Please give another round of applause for our plenary speakers this morning. What an amazing group of folks. You know, this morning's group of folks are people who have been friends of the Alliance, some for many years through a variety of different jobs, and who all have incredibly important insights and information to share with our audience. And I want to thank you all again for being here with us. And Jennifer, thank you. I don't know where you went, but thank you for closing us out on an incredibly high note with your booms and such. The Alliance is grateful to all of you. I also want to give a shout out to all of the speakers and a thanks to all of the speakers who made our sessions and plenaries so strong this time around. Thank you. So many attendees have approached me or members of the Alliance team to tell us about what you're seeing and hearing from the sessions. And I think what I heard was that folks are excited about the content that we had and about the connections that we made time for this week. So again, thank you all. Actually, I kind of needed that. Hold on. Whew, it's the end of the week. So the morning huddle, the staff huddle every morning, every day of the conference at 7:30 a.m. And the morning huddle on the last day of the conference is always a discussion about the themes that our team saw emerge from the sessions and what people told us that they're excited about. And I want to share some of what the team told me this morning. All right, so now I'm gonna. First, folks felt the change in energy and mood at this conference and appreciated being in a space where we were leading with positivity, even while we're making room for authentic and sometimes really hard discussions about the challenges that you're facing. That was something we intentionally did. I hope it worked. I hope you liked it. And I hope you had fun as well as like a good learning experience. And on that note, one member of our team heard from several of you that it feels like we've also made another really important shift. And that's a shift from a focus on naming the challenges, especially coming out of the pandemic, a shift from naming the challenges and problems to identifying and implementing solutions to those challenges at well. And that felt really important to say out loud to all of you who are in this room. That shift feels really important. We heard that folks liked having the peer group discussions, but that maybe we need a little bit more structure and time for those discussions, so we're going to work on that. We'll make sure that we get some more ideas from you all about how to do that. We continue to hear about how much you like the transformation talks. Thank you for those of you who are doing them. They're really fun. Good job, everybody. We heard that a lot of people with lived experience appreciated the elevation of their voices in sessions and on the plenary stage. So thank you to all of you who participated in those sessions. We know we still have a lot of work to do there too, but we now have two amazing staff members who are dedicated to that area of our agenda at the Alliance. So I feel really confident that we'll keep improving and getting stronger in our partnerships with those people who have been or are currently homeless. We heard the need to keep having material on the basics in our work for new folks or folks who need a refresher, but also the desire to lean in on new ways to tackle tough problems like the shortage of affordable housing. I hear that the housing sessions yesterday were standing room only. We had to start bringing in extra chairs. So we hear you on that. And so many of you played the Jeopardy game in the lobby. If you didn't see it, we'll have it for you next time, that we ran out of prizes. So we hear that you like games and that you're actually pretty good at them. So we need to bring more prizes. But I also think it means that people like the interactive nature of the engagement. And I want to do a shout out to Malik from our team who created that game. I feel liberated, can you tell? Like Jennifer just liberated me. So I'm going to leave the list there for now because we want to make sure that you get lunch before folks head up to the Hill for the afternoon. But I want you to know that what Shalom said in the opening plenary is absolutely true. This is your conference, and we will continue to find ways to hear from you about making it what you need as we go forward. We're just going to keep going. We're going to try new things, and if they don't work, we won't do them again, and if they do work, we'll make them better. So thank you for all of your input. And before we get to the list of important thank yous, I want to remind you about our asks of you after you go home. Support the projects that are working in your community and stay true to the evidence-based models that we know have positive impact, while also looking for new ways to innovate in these changing times. Continue to focus on the racial justice and equity work that is so important to our progress. Support your local efforts to combat policies and laws that criminalize people just for existing in public spaces. Use our materials to retake the narrative about homelessness in your communities and nationally. And please keep making connections with each other and with us so that we can continue to do this work together. 2 quick reminders. Surveys, please take your surveys. They're linked in the app. We carefully review those surveys. We look at them very closely. Our HRI team does a whole analysis on them so that we can incorporate your feedback, and they help us plan better conferences. And for all of those who were asking, we're going to post the conference session materials on the app, I believe, tomorrow. So look for them there. And then one last thing I promise before I get to the thank yous. This is our first in-person Capitol Hill Day, as Steve mentioned, since the pandemic. To our state Capitol Hill Day captains, your incredible hard work makes this day possible, and we know that you do it on top of your day job. You all are awesome. Thank you for your partnership. And I want to give a special shout out to our lived experience advocates who are going up on the Hill. Hill Day would be nowhere near as impactful without you, and we are grateful to all of you. You all are amazing. Thank you. So now for the list of official thank yous, and then I'll be done. I want to thank you all who are in this room for traveling to be here in DC and for sharing your work with each other and with us at the Alliance. And most of all, I want to thank you for everything that you do every day in pursuit of our shared mission of ending homelessness. We are incredibly grateful for your partnership and your expertise, and just happy to have you here. And I could not end this conference without thanking the incredible Alliance team that makes this all happen. Everyone worked their hearts out this week and for many weeks leading up to this conference. And I am grateful and I know all of you are grateful. I don't know how many, most of the staff is working, but if you are here, please stand up because I'm going to read everybody's names out loud. So, Steve, he's back here. Steve, Sean, Kevin, Gina, Nikki, Teresa, Andrew, keep clapping. This is his last Alliance conference. He's heading back to California, you California people. So thank you, Jerry. Mary Frances, Allie M., Sharon, Caitlin, Joy, Tom, Rachel, Allie P., Malik, Yolanda, John, Albert, Alex, and Samantha. I feel like Marcy is missing from this list somewhere. Marcy is missing from my list. Marcy too. And our interns are amazing interns, one of whom started this week and just jumped in. So Olivia, Gabe, Matthew, Joshua, Kayla, and Shahira. Special shout out to our interns. And you might have noticed that I skipped a couple of names there, and I want to just take a moment of acknowledgement for one person. After 12 years with us, Kay Mosier McDivitt is retiring later this year, so this will be her last conference with us as staff. I want everybody to thank her for her service, her heart, and her incredible commitment to this work. She didn't know I was doing that, and I'm hoping that she's not crying now, but it's okay if she is. And then the last person I want to mention is Shalom. While I'm the one who stands up here in front of you a couple of times during this conference, Shalom is the COO behind the scenes, not just making this event run, but making the Alliance run. And I am grateful for her partnership. She's back here. She's not even like out in the audience. I'm grateful for her partnership and her incredible dedication to our mission. Thank you to the volunteers. We had so many awesome volunteers for their work, staffing registration and breakout sessions and getting you in this room, all the way to the end. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We had the folks from Friendship Place providing case management on site if anybody needed it. Thank you to Friendship Place. Thank you to the hotel and banquet staff. Please applaud for them. Please tip them. Tip your cleaning staff because they have been outstanding. And have I forgotten anything? Am I good? All right, I am good. Enjoy your lunch. Travel safely. Be awesome on Capitol Hill Day. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day.